Man saves drowning tiger, but the animal's reaction, minutes later, leaves everyone in shock. The Zambezi River roared with untamed fury, carrying branches, leaves, and the promise of an impending storm. The surrounding savanna seemed to hold its breath, except for the desperate sound of claws fighting against the relentless current. A magnificent Bengal tiger, its wet stripes clinging to its powerful frame, struggled against the merciless whirlpools. Its fierce gaze transformed into pure terror. Jack Harrison, a wildlife photographer who had settled in this remote corner of Zimbabwe's Mana Pools National Park 3 years ago, watched the scene with tense muscles and a racing heart. There was no time to think. He dropped his camera equipment on the riverbank and plunged into the frigid water, swimming with all his might toward the powerful beast. The impact of the tiger's claws cutting through the water's surface almost made him abandon his rescue attempt. But he persisted, speaking softly, as if his words could penetrate the animal's fear. After minutes that felt like hours, he managed to loop a makeshift rope around the tiger's heavy body and drag it to the shore, where they both collapsed from exhaustion. To Jack's surprise, the tiger didn't flee. It remained there, panting, its golden eyes fixed on its savior. Jack retreated cautiously, expecting an attack, but the predator merely observed, motionless. The tension in the air was palpable, as if both were testing invisible boundaries. Finally, the tiger backed away, disappearing among the acacia trees, but without the haste of an animal in flight. Confused, Jack returned to his modest research cabin on the outskirts of the small village of Kalomo. But that silent exchange never left his mind. In the days that followed, deep tracks appeared around his home, too fresh to be a coincidence. Other researchers reported striped shadows prowling among the trees, too close to be mere chance. The village, isolated in the heart of the conservation zone, soon fell into a state of uproar. "You've disrupted the natural order, Jack," said Ellie Montgomery, the head zoologist at the research station and Jack's ex-fiancée. "Tigers aren't even native to Africa. This one must have escaped from somewhere. And now you've created a dangerous connection." "I couldn't just let it drown," Jack argued, his voice tinged with frustration. "And it hasn't shown any aggression. If anything, it seems grateful." Ellie shook her head, her blonde hair catching the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows of the research station. "That's a dangerous assumption. Wild animals don't feel gratitude. They operate on instinct and survival." The rumors spread like wildfire. Some villagers said the tiger was cursed, that saving such a powerful beast would bring misfortune. Others, more superstitious, believed the animal would demand a blood debt. Wesley Grant, the village elder, pressured by growing fear, summoned hunters to deal with the threat. Jack tried to reason with him, explain that the tiger didn't seem hostile, but was ignored. "This is Africa, Harrison," Wesley said, his weathered face set in determined lines. "We know our lions, our leopards, but a tiger, it doesn't belong here, and neither do your bleeding heart theories about animal sentience." That same night, human footprints were found beside the tiger's marks, as if someone was manipulating events to further inflame tensions. Suspicion became inevitable. Someone was willing to transform fear into a weapon. The heavy atmosphere only worsened when a group of researchers disappeared in the savannah. Days later, they were found disoriented, swearing they had been attacked by the beast. The marks on their bodies, however, didn't look like claw wounds. Amid the mounting tension, Jack decided to investigate on his own. Searching the area where he had saved the tiger, he found newly placed traps designed to provoke the animal. Further ahead, among exposed roots, he found a broken amulet with symbols resembling ancient inscriptions, suggesting that there was more to this situation than met the eye. "This doesn't make sense," Jack muttered to himself, turning the amulet over in his hands. The markings weren't African. They resembled something he'd seen in Southeast Asian artifacts. Unless... His thoughts were interrupted by movement in the tall grass. Jack froze, his hand instinctively reaching for the tranquilizer gun he now carried for protection. The grass parted and the tiger emerged, its golden eyes reflecting the setting sun. Jack's breath caught in his throat, but the animal made no aggressive move. Instead, it dropped something at its feet, a piece of torn fabric that Jack immediately recognized as part of the uniform worn by Wade Turner, the newest member of the research team who had arrived just before the strange events began. "What are you trying to tell me?" Jack whispered, keeping his voice low and even. The tiger's ears twitched, and it took a step closer, causing Jack to tense, but the animal merely nudged the fabric with its nose before turning its attention to Jack's pocket, where he had just placed the broken amulet. Meanwhile, back at the village, Wade was addressing an impromptu gathering. "We can't allow sentiment to cloud our judgment," he argued, his voice carrying across the gathering space. "This tiger represents a clear and present danger to our research, our livelihoods, and ultimately, our safety." Ellie stood off to the side, her arms crossed as she studied Wade's impassioned speech. There was something about his conviction that didn't sit right with her, especially given his recent arrival. "How exactly did you end up here, Wade?" she asked suddenly, interrupting his rhetoric. "You mentioned being transferred from the Thailand Conservation Project, but I don't recall Dr. Chapman mentioning any new assignments." Wade's expression flickered momentarily before resuming its mask of concerned authority. "Dr. Chapman doesn't micromanage every personnel decision, Dr. Montgomery. I was brought in specifically because of my experience with large predators in Southeast Asia." "Including tigers," she pressed, an uneasy feeling settling in her stomach. "Especially tigers," he confirmed, his gaze hardening slightly. "Which is why I'm telling you, this situation is more dangerous than Harrison wants to admit." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the savannah, Jack remained crouched in front of the tiger, engaged in a silent standoff that felt increasingly like communication. The tiger's behavior defied everything he knew about wild predators, especially one supposedly acting on pure instinct in a foreign environment. "You're trying to warn me about something, aren't you?" Jack said softly, his mind racing with possibilities. "Or someone?" The tiger's tail swished once, its eyes never leaving Jack's face. Then, with deliberate slowness, it turned and walked a few paces before looking back, clearly wanting Jack to follow. The choice before him was clear: trust his scientific training that told him to retreat from the unpredictable wild animal, or follow his instincts that were screaming that something much larger and more complex was unfolding in this remote corner of Zimbabwe. Something that connected this out-of-place tiger, Wade Turner, ancient Southeast Asian symbols, and the growing fear that threatened to consume the village. Jack took a deep breath and stood. "Lead the way," he said, and stepped forward into the gathering darkness, unaware that miles away, Ellie was placing a call to the International Wildlife Conservation Headquarters with urgent questions about Wade Turner's credentials, questions that would soon blow the entire situation wide open. The tiger moved with surprising stealth through the moonlit savannah, occasionally glancing back to ensure Jack was still following. They traveled for nearly an hour, moving deeper into the protected reserve than Jack had ever ventured before. The night sounds of Africa surrounded them, the distant roar of lions, the cackling of hyenas, and the constant chorus of insects. Yet the tiger seemed unperturbed, focused on its mysterious destination. Finally, they reached a small clearing, where the animal stopped and crouched low in the tall grass. Jack followed suit, his breath caught in his throat as he peered through the vegetation. In the distance, illuminated by powerful flashlights, a group of men were loading crates into a camouflaged truck. Among them, unmistakably, was Wade Turner. "What the hell?" Jack whispered, reaching for his phone to document what he was seeing. The tiger let out a low growl, as if warning him to remain silent. Through his camera zoom, Jack could see that the crates contained tranquilized exotic animals, species that had no business being in Africa. Back at the research station, Ellie paced nervously as she waited on hold with the International Wildlife Conservation Headquarters in Washington. When the line finally connected, the information she received chilled her to the bone. "I'm sorry, Doctor Montgomery, but we have no record of a Wade Turner being transferred to your facility," the coordinator explained. "In fact, we've had reports of a similar individual operating under various aliases at conservation sites in Southeast Asia, always preceding unusual wildlife trafficking incidents." Ellie's mind raced. "He claimed to specialize in tiger conservation in Thailand." "That's concerning," the coordinator replied. "We've been tracking the disappearance of several Bengal tigers from protected reserves in northern Thailand. If your mystery man is who we think he is, he may be connected to an international exotic animal smuggling ring." But why bring a tiger to Africa? Ellie wondered aloud. Misdirection, perhaps, came the thoughtful response. Or maybe a personal collection. These traffickers often keep trophies from their operations. As the conversation ended, Ellie grabbed her satellite phone and headed for Jack's cabin. She needed to warn him immediately, but when she arrived, she found the place empty. On his desk, however, was the broken amulet he had discovered. She picked it up, studying the strange symbols with growing concern. Meanwhile, in the clearing, Jack continued his covert observation of Wade and his team. From their conversations, he gathered they were preparing for a major transport operation the following night, something involving special cargo that would make them rich beyond imagination. "We're almost ready," Wade was saying to a burly man with a thick southern accent. "Once we ship out these exotics to our buyers in Dubai, we'll retrieve our star attraction. That tiger is worth 10 times what these other creatures will fetch." "If we can find it," the other man grumbled. "That beast has been giving us the slip for days now." Wade's confident smile sent shivers down Jack's spine. "Oh, we'll find it, and Harrison will lead us right to it. He's developed quite the bond with our investment, from what the trackers tell me." The tiger beside Jack tensed, as if understanding it was the subject of their conversation. Its golden eyes fixed on Wade with an intensity that spoke of recognition and what Jack could only interpret as hatred. The puzzle pieces began falling into place in Jack's mind. The tiger hadn't escaped. It had been brought here deliberately, as part of an exotic animal trafficking operation. Its presence in the Zambezi River wasn't an accident. Something had gone wrong with their plan. "You escaped from them, didn't you?" Jack whispered to the tiger, which flicked an ear in his direction, without taking its gaze from the smugglers. "And now you're trying to expose them." The intelligence in the animal's eyes was uncanny, challenging everything Jack thought he knew about animal cognition. This wasn't just instinct. This was calculated action. The tiger had sought him out specifically, had brought him evidence, had led him to witness the operation firsthand. It was as if the animal had recognized in Jack a potential ally against a common enemy. As they watched, Wade checked his watch and signaled to the others. "Pack it up. We meet back here tomorrow at dusk. And remember, Harrison is not to be harmed. Unless absolutely necessary, we need him to lead us to the tiger voluntarily." The men began dispersing, and Jack knew it was time to retreat. He and the tiger backed away slowly, careful not to make a sound that might give away their position. Once they were a safe distance away, Jack turned to the animal. "I need to get back to warn Ellie and the others," he said, feeling strangely comfortable talking to the tiger, as if it could understand every word. "Will you come with me?" The tiger regarded him for a long moment before turning and heading in a different direction, disappearing into the darkness of the African night. Jack stood watching until the striped form was completely gone from sight, then hurried back toward the village, his mind racing with the implications of what he'd discovered. Unbeknownst to Jack, he wasn't the only one making revelations that night. In his cabin, Ellie had continued investigating the amulet, using the research station's database to identify the symbols. What she found left her breathless. They were ancient Thai protective sigils, traditionally used to bestow spiritual protection on revered animals, particularly tigers believed to possess mystical properties. Her research was interrupted by a gentle knock at the door. She opened it to find Amara, an elderly local woman who served as the village healer and keeper of traditional knowledge. "You found something that doesn't belong here," Amara said without preamble, her eyes fixed on the amulet in Ellie's hand. "You know what this is?" Ellie asked, inviting the woman inside. Amara nodded solemnly. "I have seen such things before when I traveled to the east in my youth. It is a binding charm, meant to connect a guardian spirit to its human keeper." "A guardian spirit?" Ellie echoed, skepticism evident in her voice, despite her respect for the older woman. "Do not dismiss what you cannot explain with your science, child," Amara admonished gently. "In many cultures, certain animals are believed to carry the spirits of great protectors. This tiger that has appeared, it is no ordinary beast." "What are you suggesting?" Ellie asked, her scientific mind struggling with the implications. I'm suggesting," Amara replied, her voice gaining strength, "that your tiger found its way here for a purpose, and that purpose is connected to the one who brought these symbols to our land." Before Ellie could respond, the door burst open and Jack rushed in, breathless and wide-eyed. He stopped short at the sight of Amara, who merely smiled knowingly. "The Guardian has chosen you," she said simply, then slipped past him and out the door, leaving Jack staring after her in confusion. "What was that about?" he asked, turning to Ellie. "I think," she replied slowly, "that we're dealing with something far more complex than wildlife trafficking." She held up the amulet. "This is a Thai protective charm, traditionally used for tigers believed to possess special spiritual significance." Jack's expression shifted from confusion to dawning comprehension. "The tiger isn't just any tiger. It's a specific target, and it's been trying to communicate with me, trying to expose Wade and his operation." "Jack, that's—" "I know how it sounds," he interrupted, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "But I've seen it with my own eyes, Ellie. This tiger is different. And tonight it led me straight to Wade and his smuggling operation. They're moving exotic animals through the reserve, and the tiger is their prized possession that somehow escaped." Ellie's scientific skepticism battled with the evidence before her. Jack's testimony, the amulet, Amara's certainty, and the strange behavior of the tiger itself. "Even if you're right, what can we do? Wade has clearly infiltrated the research team, and who knows how many others in the village might be working with him." Jack's expression hardened with determination. "We expose them. I have photos of their operation, and with your call to headquarters, we have proof Wade isn't who he claims to be. We contact the authorities and—" A sudden commotion outside cut him off. They rushed to the window to see several villagers gathering, torches and weapons in hand. At the center of the group stood Wesley Grant, his face grim in the flickering light. Beside him, looking supremely confident, was Wade Turner. "Jack Harrison," Wesley called out, his voice carrying across the compound. "You are hereby ordered to surrender yourself and reveal the location of the dangerous animal you've been harboring. Failure to comply will result in immediate expulsion from this village and all research privileges revoked." Jack and Ellie exchanged alarmed glances. Wade had moved faster than they anticipated, turning the village against them before they could expose his true identity. As they watched, Wade leaned in to say something to Wesley, a smug smile playing at his lips. "We can't let them find the tiger," Jack whispered urgently. "You heard Amara. There's something special about this animal. And even if the spiritual stuff isn't true, I've seen enough to know it's trying to help us stop whatever Wade is planning." Ellie took a deep breath, her decision made. Then, we need to find it first, and I think I know how. Jack and Ellie slipped out the back window of the cabin just as the villagers began to approach the front door. The night cloaked their escape as they hurried toward the research station's utility vehicle parked behind the laboratory building. "What's your plan?" Jack whispered as they crouched low, making their way through the shadows. Ellie pulled a small device from her pocket, a wildlife tracking receiver. "Remember the conservation project we were working on last year? The one tracking lion movements through the reserve?" Jack nodded, realization dawning. "The thermal imaging drones." "Exactly," Ellie confirmed. "If this tiger is as intelligent, as you say, it's still nearby. These drones can scan a 5-mile radius and identify large predators by their heat signatures." They reached the vehicle and climbed in quietly. Ellie started the engine and drove away from the village with the headlights off, using only the ambient moonlight to guide them along the well-worn trail toward the research station's secondary, a field office. "Wade is moving faster than I expected," Jack said, keeping watch for pursuers through the rear window. "He must have realized we're onto him." "The call I made to headquarters probably spooked him," Ellie replied, expertly navigating the bumpy terrain. "They mentioned similar operations in Southeast Asia. Wade, or whatever his real name is, has done this before." The field office was a small, solar-powered building nestled among a grove of baobab trees about 3 miles from the main village. Used primarily for equipment storage and as a bad weather shelter during extended field observations, it was the perfect place to regroup and implement their plan. Once inside, Ellie powered up the computer system while Jack secured the perimeter. The drone controls hummed to life, and Ellie quickly programmed the search parameters. "This will take about 20 minutes to scan the immediate area," she explained as the small aerial vehicle launched from its docking station on the roof. "If your tiger friend is within range, we'll find it." Jack paced nervously, his mind racing. "There's something else, Ellie, something I didn't tell you before because I wasn't sure you'd believe me." She looked up from the monitor, her expression softening. "After everything that's happened tonight, I think my threshold for belief has been significantly expanded. The tiger brought me evidence," Jack said, meeting her gaze directly. "A piece of Wade's uniform. It's as if it wanted me to know who the enemy is. And when we were watching the smuggling operation, its behavior, it was calculated, Ellie. It knew exactly what it was showing me." Ellie was quiet for a moment, processing this information. "That aligns with what Amara was saying about guardian spirits. In Thai culture, there are legends of tigers possessed by protective spirits that bond with specific humans." "You believe that?" Jack asked, surprised by her apparent acceptance. She shrugged. "I believe there are many things science hasn't fully explained yet, and I believe in what you've observed." She turned back to the monitor. "Look, we're getting readings." The screen displayed a thermal map of the surrounding area. Several smaller heat signatures indicated various animals, likely impala or warthogs, but one larger, distinctive signature caught their attention. It was moving purposefully toward their location. "That's a big cat," Ellie confirmed, zooming in on the image. "And it's heading straight for us." Jack moved to the window, peering out. Into the darkness. "It found us. It knows we need it." Within minutes, they heard a soft scratching at the door. Jack opened it slowly, and there stood the tiger, its golden eyes reflecting the dim light from inside the field office. Without hesitation, it padded inside, moving with a grace that seemed at odds with its massive size. It circled the small room once, as if inspecting the space, then settled near Jack's feet, its gaze fixed on the computer screen. "Incredible," Ellie breathed, watching the interaction. "It's completely comfortable with you." "Not just with me," Jack noted, observing how the tiger's attention was divided between them. "It seems to understand that you're an ally, too." Ellie cautiously extended her hand, allowing the tiger to catch her scent. The animal leaned forward, nostrils flaring, then gently pressed its head against her palm in a gesture that brought tears to her eyes. "Okay," she said, her voice slightly unsteady. "I'm officially a believer. This is no ordinary tiger." The touching moment was interrupted by an alert from the computer. A group of heat signatures was moving rapidly toward the village from the direction of the clearing where the smuggling operation had been observed. "They're mobilizing," Jack said grimly. "Wade's bringing in reinforcements." Ellie pulled up the satellite phone. "I'm calling the Zimbabwean Wildlife Authority. With what we know now, they can't ignore this." As she made the call, Jack knelt beside the tiger, feeling an inexplicable connection growing stronger. "We need to protect you," he said softly, "and we need your help to stop them." The tiger's response came in the form of a low rumble that vibrated through the floorboards. It rose and moved to the door, looking back expectantly. "I think it wants us to follow again," Jack told Ellie, who was just finishing her call. "The authorities are dispatching a team," she reported, "but they won't be here until morning. They're coordinating with Interpol, since this involves international wildlife trafficking." "That might be too late," Jack warned. "Wade knows we're onto him. He'll accelerate his plans." The tiger growled impatiently, pawing at the door. "I think you're right," Ellie agreed, "and I think our friend here knows exactly what we need to do next." They followed the tiger into the African night, the stars above them like silent witnesses to the unlikely alliance forming between humans and the magnificent beast. The animal led them on a different route, avoiding open spaces and keeping to the shadows of the acacia trees and tall grasses. After about a mile, the tiger stopped abruptly, ears pricked forward. In the distance, they could make out the lights of vehicles moving rapidly through the reserve, far too fast for standard research or conservation work. The tiger crouched low, indicating they should do the same. "They're heading toward the eastern border," Jack whispered, recognizing the direction. "There's an old maintenance road there that connects to the highway, perfect for smuggling operations." "We need evidence," Ellie said, pulling out her camera with its powerful night vision lens. "Clear photographs of them with the animals, preferably with identifiable faces." The tiger seemed to understand their predicament. It slunk forward, staying low in the grass, guiding them toward a better vantage point. They found themselves on a slight rise that overlooked a hidden loading area. Several vehicles were already there, including the truck Jack had seen earlier and two new SUVs with darkened windows. Men moved efficiently, transferring crates from one vehicle to another. Through the telephoto lens, Ellie captured image after image of the operation, including clear shots of Wade directing the activities. "Got them!" she whispered triumphantly. Suddenly the tiger tensed beside them, a low warning growl rumbling in its chest. Before they could react, a powerful flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating their position. "Well, well," came Wade's mocking voice as he approached, flanked by two armed men. "I was hoping you'd lead us to our missing merchandise, Harrison, but I never expected you'd deliver yourself and Dr. Montgomery as a bonus." Jack and Ellie slowly stood, hands raised. The tiger remained crouched in the grass, somehow understanding the need to stay hidden. "It's over, Wade," Jack said firmly. "We know everything about your operation. The authorities have been notified, and they're on their way." Wade's laughter was cold and confident. "By the time they arrive, we'll be long gone. And you too? Well, unfortunate research accidents happen all the time in the wild, don't they? The village knows we're out here," Ellie bluffed. "Wesley and the others will come looking for us." "Wesley Grant is a simple man, easily manipulated by money and fear," Wade dismissed. "He believes you're both deranged conservationists who've formed an unhealthy attachment to a dangerous animal. No one will question the tragic story of how you were attacked while pursuing your beloved tiger." As he spoke, the two men with him began to spread out, cutting off potential escape routes. Jack's mind raced, searching for options, when he felt a subtle change in the air around them, a tension, a gathering energy. The tiger, which had remained hidden until now, suddenly leapt into action with a ferocity that startled everyone. It didn't attack the humans, however. Instead, it charged directly at the vehicles, leaping onto the hood of the lead SUV with such force that the windshield cracked. The men shouted in alarm, momentarily forgetting about Jack and Ellie as they scrambled to protect their illicit cargo. "Now!" Jack yelled, grabbing Ellie's hand and pulling her toward the cover of nearby trees. They ran, hearing Wade's furious commands behind them and the chaotic sounds of men trying to contain a situation rapidly spinning out of control. The tiger continued its strategic distraction, damaging vehicles and creating enough confusion to cover their escape. "It's creating a diversion for us," Ellie said breathlessly as they reached the shelter of the trees. "Not just a diversion," Jack realized as they heard the distinctive sound of crates breaking open. "It's freeing the other animals." Indeed, the night soon filled with the sounds of various exotic creatures making their escape. Birds taking flight, smaller mammals scurrying into the underbrush, all adding to the chaos that prevented Wade and his men from organizing an effective pursuit. As they ran, Ellie clutched the camera containing the evidence tightly to her chest. "We need to get back to the village, find someone we can trust." "Amara," Jack suggested immediately. "The village respects her, and she already knows something unusual is happening." They changed direction, heading toward the healer's dwelling on the outskirts of the village. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew fainter, replaced by frustrated shouts and the roar of engines struggling on the uneven terrain. "Do you think the tiger will be okay?" Ellie asked as they slowed their pace, needing to conserve energy. Jack glanced back toward the commotion, a smile touching his lips despite the danger. "I think that tiger can take care of itself, and I think it's exactly where it wants to be, disrupting Wade's entire operation." As if in response to his words, a powerful roar echoed across the savannah, a sound of triumph and defiance that sent shivers down their spines. "Yeah," Ellie agreed, a note of wonder in her voice. "I think you're right." They continued toward the village, unaware that their unlikely alliance with the tiger was about to transform into something even more extraordinary. A partnership that would challenge everything they thought they knew about the relationship between humans and animals, and reveal truths about Wade's operation that went far beyond simple wildlife trafficking. Amara's dwelling sat apart from the main village, surrounded by medicinal plants and protected by a fence of intricately woven branches. Despite the late hour, a warm light glowed from within. It was as if she had been expecting them. "Come," she called out before they even knocked, her aged voice carrying through the partially open door. "Quickly now." Jack and Ellie exchanged a surprised glance before hurrying. Inside, the small circular hut was filled with the scent of herbs and burning sage. Amara sat cross-legged on a woven mat, various artifacts arranged in a semicircle before her. "The Guardian has revealed itself," she stated simply, her wise eyes studying their disheveled appearance. "And now you are both in danger." "How did you know?" Ellie asked, still clutching the camera with their evidence. Amara's weathered face creased in a knowing smile. "The signs have been present since the stranger arrived. The disturbance in the natural rhythms, the unusual behavior of the animals, the appearance of a creature not of this land." She gestured for them to sit. "I may be old, but I listen to what the earth tells me." Jack sat down heavily, exhaustion finally catching up with him. "We've discovered something terrible, Amara. Wade Turner isn't who he claims to be. He's running an exotic animal smuggling operation through the reserve." "We have evidence," Ellie added, holding up the camera. "But the authorities won't arrive until morning, and Wade's men are after us. He's accelerating his plans, preparing to ship out tonight." Amara nodded solemnly. "The tiger? It fights against this evil?" "Yes," Jack confirmed, still amazed by the animal's behavior. It's been trying to expose Wade from the beginning. It even created a diversion to help us escape just now. The old healer reached for a small wooden box among her artifacts. Opening, it revealed a collection of ancient-looking scrolls and small talismans. She carefully extracted one that looked remarkably similar to the broken amulet they had found. "In my youth, I traveled far," she explained, her fingers tracing the symbols on the talisman. "I studied with healers and spiritual leaders from many lands. In Thailand, I learned of the Sua Pi, sacred tigers believed to harbor the spirits of great warriors or protectors." "Like guardian spirits," Ellie murmured, remembering their earlier conversation. "Yes," Amara confirmed. "These tigers are rare, one in thousands, and they are recognized by certain markers. Unusual intelligence, the ability to form bonds with specific humans, and a deep sense of justice that transcends animal instinct." "That describes our tiger perfectly," Jack said, leaning forward with interest. Amara held up the talisman. "These were created to identify and protect such special animals. The fact that you found a broken one suggests that someone, this Wade person, knows exactly what kind of tiger he has captured." "But why?" Ellie questioned. "Why go to such lengths for one specific tiger?" "Because in certain markets," Amara explained grimly, "a Sua Pi is worth more than gold. Some believe that possessing such a tiger grants power, protection, even immortality. Others believe that consuming parts of such a sacred animal transfers its spiritual energy to them." Jack felt physically ill at the implication. "So this isn't just about exotic animal trafficking. It's about selling a supposedly mystical creature to the highest bidder." "Precisely," Amara confirmed. "And the fact that this tiger has chosen to bond with you, Jack Harrison, is no coincidence. In the old stories, the Sua Pi selects a human counterpart, one who shares its sense of justice and possesses the courage to stand against evil." Ellie looked at Jack with new understanding. "That's why it sought you out after you saved it from drowning. It recognized something in you." Before Jack could respond, a distant commotion reached them. Raised voices, engines, flashlight beams, cutting through the darkness outside. "They've reached the village," Jack said, moving to peek through the small window. "They're mobilizing. Search parties." Amara rose with surprising agility for her age. "We must move quickly. The evidence you have collected must reach the right hands, but first we need to complete the bond between you and the Guardian." "Complete the bond?" Jack echoed, confused. "The connection you have formed is strong but incomplete," Amara explained, gathering various items into a small pouch. "To truly work together, to unlock the full potential of your alliance, an ancient ritual must be performed." Ellie's scientific skepticism resurfaced momentarily. "Amara, we don't have time for—" A sudden scratching at the door interrupted her. Amara smiled knowingly and moved to open it. The tiger stood there, its golden eyes gleaming in the darkness, its massive form somehow managing to look both regal and anxious. "The Guardian comes," Amara said simply, stepping aside to allow the animal entrance. The tiger padded in silently, immediately moving to Jack's side. Up close in the confined space, its size was even more impressive, yet it moved with careful precision, aware of its power and consciously containing it. "I've never seen anything like this," Ellie whispered, watching as the tiger pressed its head against Jack's hand in a gesture that seemed almost human in its intentionality. Amara worked quickly, arranging various herbs, powders, and crystals in a circular pattern around Jack and the tiger. "The ritual is simple but powerful," she explained. "It will strengthen what nature has already begun." "What do I need to do?" Jack asked, his hand still resting on the tiger's massive head. "Open your mind to the Guardian," Amara instructed, lighting small bundles of herbs that filled the hut with fragrant smoke. Allow yourself to see through its eyes, to feel what it feels. The Suapi already recognizes you as its human counterpart. Now you must recognize it in return. Jack closed his eyes, feeling somewhat self-conscious but trusting in Amara's wisdom. He focused on the warm presence of the tiger beside him, the steady rhythm of its breathing, the vibration of its low purr against his palm. Amara began to chant softly in a language neither Jack nor Ellie recognized, her weathered hands moving in intricate patterns through the smoke. The tiger remained perfectly still, its eyes half closed, as if also participating in some unseen communion. Ellie watched in amazement as the atmosphere in the hut seemed to shift, becoming charged with an energy she couldn't explain scientifically, but could definitely feel. The air around Jack and the tiger appeared to shimmer slightly, like heat waves rising from sun-baked earth. Suddenly, Jack gasped, his eyes flying open. "I can feel it," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "Not just emotions, but images, impressions. What do you see?" Amara asked quietly, continuing her ritual movements. "A temple," Jack described, his gaze unfocused as if looking at something far away. Ancient stone covered in vines, monks in orange robes, the tiger, younger, smaller, being marked with ceremonial paint, the amulet being placed around its neck. His expression darkened. Then darkness, cages, fear, men with tranquilizer guns, a long journey in confinement. The tiger growled softly, as if confirming the narrative. "The Guardian is sharing its memories with you," Amara explained. "This is the sign that the bond is forming." Jack continued, his voice growing stronger. "It escaped during transport when the truck swerved near the river. It was wounded, disoriented. Then the current caught it." He looked down at the tiger with newfound understanding. "That's why you were in the river. You were trying to get away from Wade and his men." The tiger's golden eyes met his, and in that moment, Jack felt something unprecedented, a direct communion of understanding that transcended language. He knew with unshakable certainty that this magnificent creature was more than just an animal. It possessed an awareness, a purposefulness that defied conventional understanding. "The bond is complete," Amara announced, satisfaction evident in her tone as she ceased her chanting. "You are now connected in ways that go beyond what either of you could achieve alone." "What does that mean practically?" Ellie asked, still processing what she had witnessed. "It means," Amara replied, "that together they can communicate without words, sense each other's presence across distances, and even share strength when needed. In the old stories, such bonded pairs accomplished extraordinary feats of courage and justice. A sudden shout outside, much closer than before, reminded them of their precarious situation. "We need to move," Jack said urgently, rising to his feet. The tiger stood with him, their movements now strangely synchronized. "Wade's men are getting closer." Amara handed Ellie a small leather pouch. "Take the evidence to Matthew Brooks at the ranger station on the north boundary. He is not part of Turner's conspiracy and has direct communication with wildlife authorities in the capital." "What about you?" Ellie asked, concerned for the elderly woman's safety. Amara smiled serenely. "I have lived in this village for 7 decades. No one will suspect me of harboring fugitives. I will misdirect them while you escape." "And the ritual?" Jack asked, feeling a new energy coursing through him despite his physical exhaustion. "How long does this bond last?" "The legends say that once formed, the bond remains until one or both pass from this world," Amara replied. "But remember, this is not control or dominance. The Guardian has chosen you as an equal partner in its mission." The tiger growled softly and moved toward the back of the hut where a small window provided another exit. "I think we have our escape route," Jack observed, with a slight smile. "It's like I can sense what it's thinking." "Because you can, Amara." "Confirmed. Now go. Dawn approaches, and with it your window of opportunity narrows." Jack and Ellie slipped out through the window, the tiger leading the way. As they disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness, Amara prepared to face Wade's men with the serene confidence of one who knows she is on the right side of a much larger cosmic battle. Outside, Jack felt a new sense of clarity and purpose. The tiger moved ahead of them, occasionally looking back to ensure they were following, but now Jack could almost anticipate its movements, sense its intentions. It was leading them not toward the ranger station, but back toward the loading area where Wade's operation was centered. "We're not going to the ranger station?" Ellie questioned, noticing their direction. "Not yet," Jack replied, understanding flowing through the bond with the tiger. "We need more than just photos. The tiger knows where Wade keeps documents, records of buyers and suppliers. With that evidence, we can bring down not just this operation, but the entire network." Ellie studied his face in the dim light. "You really can communicate with it, can't you?" "Not in words," Jack tried to explain. "It's more like shared purpose, intent. I can sense what it knows, what it wants to show us." He gestured ahead. "It's going to lead us to Wade's command center, where we can find proof of the entire smuggling network." As the first hints of dawn began to lighten the eastern horizon, they moved through the savannah with renewed determination. The tiger, once a mysterious enigma, had become their guide and ally in a battle against forces that threatened not just individual animals, but the sanctity of nature itself. What awaited them at Wade's hidden compound would test the limits of their unusual alliance and challenge their understanding of the connection between humans and the natural world in ways none of them could have anticipated. And the sky was turning a pale lavender as they approached Wade's hidden compound, a collection of camouflage tents and temporary structures nestled in a natural depression that shielded it from casual observation. The main activity seemed centered around a large canvas-covered truck with reinforced cages visible inside. Men moved with increased urgency, clearly accelerating their schedule. "They're getting ready to move out," Jack whispered as they crouched behind a cluster of boulders. "They must know the authorities are coming." The tiger beside him remained, perfectly still, its eyes fixed on a small tent set apart from the others. Through their newfound connection, Jack understood immediately. "That's Wade's command center," he told Ellie. "The tiger says that's where he keeps his records." Ellie raised an eyebrow at his phrasing, but didn't question it. "How do we get there? There are at least 8 armed men between us and that tent." The tiger's muscles tensed, and Jack placed a restraining hand on its shoulder. "No, we can't just charge in. Too dangerous." To his surprise, the massive cat relaxed under his touch, acknowledging his caution. It was extraordinary how their communication had evolved in just a few hours, from uncertainty to this intuitive exchange of intentions and strategies. "We need a diversion," Jack murmured, scanning the compound. His gaze fell on the large fuel drums positioned near the vehicles, something to draw them away from the command center. The tiger followed his line of sight, and a shared understanding flowed between them. With a silent nod to Ellie, Jack began moving along the perimeter of the rocks, working his way toward the fuel storage area. The tiger disappeared into the tall grass, circling in the opposite direction. "What's happening?" Ellie whispered, following Jack's lead. "We're creating a distraction," he explained quietly. "The tiger is going to make its presence known on the far side of the camp. While Wade's men are focused on that, we'll slip into the command center. And if we're caught..." Jack's expression hardened. "That won't happen. The tiger won't let it." The certainty in his voice gave Ellie pause. This was a new Jack Harrison, one connected to forces she was only beginning to comprehend. They reached a position just 30 yards from the fuel drums when a powerful roar shattered the dawn silence. It came from the opposite side of the camp, causing an immediate reaction among Wade's men. Shouts of alarm rang out as they grabbed weapons and flashlights, rushing toward the source of the sound. "Now," Jack urged, and they sprinted toward the command tent, keeping low and using the vehicles for cover. They slipped inside the tent undetected, finding it surprisingly well equipped with satellite communications gear, a powerful laptop, and multiple filing cases. Wade's operation was clearly more sophisticated than they had initially believed. "Look for shipping manifests, buyer contacts, anything that shows the extent of the network," Jack instructed as they began rapidly searching through papers. Ellie powered up the laptop. "No password protection," she noted with surprise. "Overconfidence is our friend." Outside, the commotion continued as men shouted coordinates and instructions, all focused on the elusive tiger that seemed to be circling the perimeter, appearing and disappearing like a striped phantom. Through the bond, Jack could sense the tiger's calculated movements. It was leading the men on a deliberate chase, never letting them get close enough for a clear shot, but keeping them thoroughly distracted. "Jack, look at this," Ellie called urgently, turning the laptop screen toward him. "It's a complete database of their trafficking network, suppliers, transporters, buyers, and look at these prices." She pointed to a spreadsheet column with astronomical figures. "This isn't just about exotic pets. These are specialized buyers, seeking animals with supposed mystical properties." Jack's gaze fell on a particular entry, a pending sale for the Thai Guardian specimen with a price tag that made him physically recoil. $10 million for a single tiger. That's why Wade couldn't let it go. It's the centerpiece of his entire operation. "And there's more," Ellie added, clicking through files. "He's not just a trafficker, he's built an entire mythology around these animals to drive up prices. Look at these marketing materials, claiming the tiger has healing powers, can grant strength to its owner. He's weaponized superstition," Jack realized, a cold anger settling in his chest, turning ancient respect for these animals into a commercial enterprise. Ellie quickly connected a portable drive to the laptop. "I'm copying everything. With this evidence, international authorities can take down the entire network." As she worked, Jack continued searching through physical documents, discovering permits with forged signatures from conservation officials, including Wesley Grant. Wade's been manipulating the village leadership for months, positioning himself as an authority while undermining anyone who might interfere with his plans. A sudden shift in energy through the bond made Jack stiffen. "Wade's coming," he warned moments before they heard the angry voice outside the tent. "Forget the tiger for now," Wade was shouting. "Finish loading the primary specimens. We move!" "Out in 10 minutes. Ellie unplugged the drive and slipped it into her pocket just as the tent flap opened. Wade Turner stood framed in the entrance, his expression shifting from surprise to cold fury as he took in the scene. "I should have known," he said, drawing a pistol from his jacket. "You two just can't mind your own business, can you?" Jack moved slightly, positioning himself between Wade and Ellie. "It became our business when you brought illegal trafficking into our conservation area." Wade's laugh was hollow. "Conservation," he spat. "Such a limited perspective. Do you have any idea what people will pay for creatures they believe possess spiritual power? That tiger is worth more than this entire reserve and everything in it." "It's not yours to sell," Jack replied, his voice steady despite the weapon pointed at him. "It never was." "Oh, but it is," Wade countered. "I tracked that particular specimen for 2 years in Thailand. The monks thought they were protecting it with their rituals and amulets, but all they did was increase its value to the right buyers." His eyes narrowed. "And now, thanks to your interference, I'll have to eliminate both of you before completing the transaction." As Wade raised his gun, a strange calm settled over Jack. Through the bond, he could feel the tiger's presence drawing closer, responding to his need. "I wouldn't be so sure about that." A low growl from behind Wade made him spin around. The tent entrance was empty, but the sound had clearly unnerved him. "Nice try," he sneered, turning back to Jack and Ellie. "Your pet isn't here to save you this time." "Look again," Jack suggested quietly. The canvas wall of the tent behind them suddenly tore open as the tiger launched itself through the material with explosive force. In the confined space, its size and power were overwhelming. It landed between Jack and Wade, its body a living shield, golden eyes blazing with protective fury. Wade stumbled backward, his gun discharging into the tent ceiling as the tiger advanced on him with measured steps. Through the bond, Jack could feel the animal's controlled rage, not blind animal aggression but focused intent. "Call it off!" Wade shouted, his composure finally cracking as he backed toward the tent entrance. "I'll shoot!" But his threats were empty. Before he could aim again, the tiger lunged, not to attack, but to knock the weapon from his hand with surgical precision. Wade fell backward through the tent flap, scrambling to his feet and running toward the vehicles, shouting for his men. "Time to go," Jack said urgently to Ellie, who was staring at the tiger in amazement. They emerged from the torn tent to find the compound in chaos. Several of the animal cages had somehow been opened, releasing various exotic creatures that were now adding to the confusion. Wade's men were divided between recapturing escaped animals, responding to their boss's calls for help, and tracking the tiger that had now vanished. Again into the tall grass. Jack, Ellie, and the tiger used the disorder to slip away from the immediate area, making their way toward higher ground where they could observe without being detected. From their vantage point, they watched as Wade frantically tried to salvage his operation, ordering men to prioritize loading the most valuable specimens. "We need to stop them from leaving with any of those animals," Ellie said, clutching the drive containing their evidence. "Even with this data, if they escape now, they'll just set up somewhere else." The tiger growled softly in agreement, and Jack felt a surge of shared purpose through their bond. "We won't let that happen," he assured her. "But we need to be smart about this." As they watched, a new sound reached them, the distant whir of helicopter blades cutting through the morning air. Moments later, a Zimbabwe Wildlife Authority helicopter appeared over the ridge, followed by several official vehicles raising dust clouds as they raced along the reserve's access road. "The authorities," Ellie breathed in relief. "They came earlier than expected." "No," Jack corrected, squinting at the approaching vehicles. "Look who's leading them." In the first vehicle, standing up through the sunroof with a determined expression, was Wesley Grant. Behind him were several villagers, including Amara, who sat regally in the passenger seat. She convinced them, Jack realized. Amara got through to Wesley about what's really happening. The arrival of official forces threw Wade's camp into pandemonium. Some men immediately surrendered, while others, including Wade himself, made a desperate dash for the remaining operational vehicle. Without hesitation, the tiger shot down the slope toward the fleeing smugglers, with Jack instinctively following. Through their bond, he understood the tiger's intent, not to harm, but to prevent escape. As Wade reached the vehicle door, the tiger intercepted him, blocking his path with its massive body. Wade froze, trapped between the advancing authorities and the tiger that had disrupted his entire operation. For a moment, something like recognition passed across his face as he stared into the tiger's golden eyes. "You've been more trouble than you're worth," he snarled, reaching for a concealed weapon. Before he could draw it, Jack tackled him from the side, driving him to the ground and pinning his arms. "It's over, Wade," he said firmly. "Your network has been exposed. Every contact, every buyer, every supplier." Wildlife officers swarmed the area, securing suspects and carefully beginning the process of cataloging the exotic animals. Ellie, approached with Wesley and Amara, handing the evidence drive to the lead officer. "Everything you need is here," she explained. "The entire trafficking network, documentation of forged permits, financial records, everything." As Wade was handcuffed and led away, his gaze remained fixed on the tiger. "You don't understand what you're interfering with," he called back to Jack. "That creature is meant for greater purposes than prowling a reserve." Jack stood beside the tiger, feeling the calm satisfaction flowing through their connection. "It already has a greater purpose," he replied simply. In the days that followed, the full extent of Wade's operation was revealed. The international authorities dismantled a trafficking network spanning 3 continents, rescuing hundreds of endangered animals destined for private collections or traditional medicine markets. The village of Kalomo became the temporary headquarters for the recovery operation, with Wesley Grant leading the local efforts to support both the authorities and the rehabilitation of the confiscated animals. The tiger, however, presented a unique challenge. As a non-native species with no clear place of origin, Wade had destroyed those records before his capture. Conservation officials debated its fate. Some advocated for transferring it to a sanctuary in Asia, others for placing it in a specialized facility for trafficked wildlife. Jack found himself in the unusual position of advocate for a creature that, scientifically speaking, didn't belong in Africa at all. Yet the bond they had formed transcended conventional conservation protocols. One evening, as the setting sun painted the savannah in shades of gold and amber, Jack sat on the porch of his cabin with Ellie beside him, and the tiger lounging contentedly at their feet. "The International Wildlife Authority made their decision today," Ellie informed him, watching his face closely. "They've designated the tiger as a special cultural heritage case in consultation with Thai conservation experts." Jack tensed. And, she continued with a small smile, "they've approved the establishment of a protected sanctuary here in the reserve, with you as its primary guardian. The tiger stays, Jack, with you." The wave of relief and joy that washed through him was echoed by a deep rumbling purr from the tiger. Through their bond, Jack felt a sense of rightness, of completion. "So what now?" Ellie asked, her hand finding his in the gathering twilight. Jack looked out over the savannah that had become his home, then down at the magnificent creature that had entered his life through such extraordinary circumstances. "Now we do what we were meant to do," he answered, feeling the tiger's agreement resonate through their connection. "We protect this place, these animals, this balance, together." In the months that followed, the story of the trafficked tiger and its unusual bond with a wildlife photographer spread throughout conservation circles. The sanctuary expanded, becoming a haven for rescued exotic animals that couldn't be returned to their native habitats. Researchers from around the world visited to study the unprecedented relationship between Jack and the tiger, though few fully understood the depth of their connection. Amara, however, understood. She visited often, watching with knowing eyes, as Jack and the tiger moved through the sanctuary with synchronized purpose, communicating without words, protecting their shared domain with vigilant care. In the old stories, she told visitors who asked about the unusual pair, there are guardians of many forms who walk this earth, some human, some animal, some something in between. They remind us that the natural world is not separate from us, but connected in ways we have forgotten. And as the seasons turned and the sanctuary flourished, Jack Harrison and his tiger companion became living embodiments of that forgotten truth, guardians of a sacred balance that transcended species, united by a bond that defied explanation, but inspired all who witnessed it. In the golden light of an African sunset, man and tiger would often stand together on the high ridge overlooking their domain, two souls bridging the ancient divide between human and wild. reminding all who saw them that the most powerful connections in this world are those that honor the sacred bond between all living things. Valued listeners, we hope that Jack and his special tiger companion's extraordinary journey has moved you deeply. To continue exploring such emotionally captivating narratives, we've prepared a special playlist with equally compelling stories. Find it by clicking the link on your left. If you enjoyed this tale of courage, connection, and conservation, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day, we bring unique stories that explore life's complexities and the remarkable bonds that can form between all living beings. Don't miss our upcoming content, and please share your thoughts in the comments below. What other incredible human-animal connections would you like to hear about next? We're eagerly awaiting your responses.